next, Session 7, the CEO's Roundtable discussions on reimagining media. This session is made possible by BAC.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Session 7, the CEO's Roundtable, Reimagining Media, which is kindly being sponsored by BAC Corporate. To moderate this session, please welcome Ms. Philomena Gnanapragazam, who is the Director of AIBD. Now, prior to joining AIBD, she was the station manager for Malaysia's pioneer English radio station, Trax FM RTM. Ms. Philomena has experience in both radio and television programming, as well as news. She was also instrumental in rebranding the English radio station, Radio 4. Under her management, Trax FM won several international awards, among them being the WHO Blue Ribbon Award in 2006. A political and communications expert, she was a key strategist in media planning for the 13th general elections in Malaysia RTM. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Philomena.
Oh, hello, everybody. This is Philomena Pragasam, Director of the Asia Pacific Institute for Broadcasting Development. For the last 2 days, we've been talking about reimagining the future of media, and so much takeaways and so many interesting new ideas that have actually come up from this 2-day deliberations. And today we have CEOs from 5 different organizations who will be sharing with us how they intend to see the future of media. And we're going to deliberate on this, and each of them would be sharing a little bit about their organization and what they're doing towards reimagining the future of media. And we're also going to open this session to all of you to ask questions from the floor, questions on the Zoom, on your opinion and what you think should be done to reimagine and take the media to a future forward. So without much ado, let me introduce the CEOs who have gathered here. I'm supposed to go on alphabetical order, but I have a gentleman sitting here with me. He's none other than the CEO of Brickfields Asia Education Group, Mr. Rajesh Singham. Now, this gentleman is a renowned figure in the education field of Malaysia. And why education? Because when you talk about education, you have the people who are grooming the first and the foremost media personnel, be it in technology or in content. So I'm very pleased to present the chairman of the BAC Education Group, Rajesh Singham, an educator, entrepreneur, philanthropist. And Rajesh Singham was named Education Man of the Year by the Brand Laureate, and he received the National Outstanding Educator Award in 2015. So he also has done a lot of work at the site, Make It Right movement and Give Back.my to help the most vulnerable. And during the pandemic, it was the face of Rajesh Singham that one would affiliate with the assistance given to single women, to people who were caught in the flood in Malaysia, and to those families suffering in the pandemic. So I have with me this icon of education right here. And I'd also like to say hi to Mr. Riaz Said Qayyum, Fijian Broadcasting Service or Corporation, sorry. So Riaz, if you're watching this Asia Media Summit live with Fiji as a virtual host, I have so much to thank Riaz and his snap, fast, action-oriented self. So Riaz, I'm glad that you're here with us today. And we have, hi Riaz. Okay,
hi, how are you?
Great. I'm so happy that you're watching this for the last 2 days. Also, we're going to say hello to the CEO of the largest broadcaster in the region, Shashi Shekhar Vempati from Prasar Bharati. Hi, Shashi. Shashi, hi. Yep. So that's
very happy to be here.
Okay, and Shashi is the digital man of India. So if you look at Shashi, he is an innovative, fantastic gentleman who has incorporated a lot of 5G into broadcasting, and he's going to share with us in just a bit. We have a lady, Ms. Shaheen Islam from NIMC Bangladesh. She is the Director General of the Bangladesh National Institute of Mass Communication. So we have two people from the education group, Educating Media. And I'd like to say hello to you, Ms. Shaheen. Welcome to Reimagining Media. This is the CEO Roundtable.
Hello, everybody. I'm Shaheen Islam from Bangladesh.
So happy to have you on board. Okay, we're going to come back. Also from Philippines, I'm joined by Mr. Rizal Apotedera from the Philippines Broadcasting Service. And Apotedera is a iconic figure in Philippines. And he also happens to be the Deputy Vice President of the AIBD. Welcome on board, Rizal.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me. And looking forward to the discussion. Thank you, Philo.
Thank you, and it's great to have you. Okay, so there you go. I've introduced all five of them, and now is the time to pose the question. So I'm going to let the host of the Asia Media Summit, the virtual host who's present here virtually, Mr. Riaz Said Qayyum, CEO of Fijian Broadcasting Corporation. So, Riaz, the question to you, and what we've been through in the last couple of years. We've seen a major change, a major shift in the way media is being consumed. And I talk about, during the pandemic where everyone is sort of watching, OTT platforms, and people are actually consuming media via their handphones and so forth. Tell me, how would you, as the CEO of the FBC, reimagine the future of media for your organization in the Pacific? Riaz?
Hi, hello everyone. Bula from Fiji. Look, the last 2 years has been difficult for everyone around the world. I think, especially for broadcasters, especially for all broadcasters, but especially more so for public service broadcasters, which we are. And we are a hybrid. We are a public service broadcaster, yet we have a commercial arm as well, because that's the only way we're going to survive in a small country like Fiji. The days of 100% funding for public service broadcasters went out the window a long time ago. So we've been, partly commercial and partly a public service broadcaster. And the last 2 years has been terrible for everyone. We've had to take on some really drastic measures. We started off with salary reductions. We stopped buying content from overseas because overseas traditional content providers were not willing to negotiate even in times of the pandemic, which is very disappointing. They wanted, and most of them didn't want, apart from not moving on the prices, wanted to continue to sell us content at the same price that they would sell content to broadcasters from developing countries. So, we had to think really fast. We had to do a lot of things. We couldn't rely on our public service broadcast contract with government, because for which we get paid a fee to produce public service broadcast programs. So the economic impact, we also realized that there's a huge economic impact in government and on government revenues and in the economy as well. In fact, the fee that we get paid as part of the public service broadcast contract that we have with government, we actually volunteered as a public service broadcaster. We thought we'd be responsible and say, and we approached government and we said, look, instead of paying us the usual fee, why don't you pay us less in the last 2 years? Because we know what everyone's going through, including government. So we apart from that, we had to create new revenue streams. So while we cut back on expenses like acquisition of programs, etc., we also were mindful that we had to quickly innovate. And it's true, in every adversity, there is some sort of advantage that comes across. We got to think a lot more. We were cash strapped, but our enthusiasm to innovate was not taken away from us. So very quickly, we can come back to this, but we went through a lot of stuff. We updated our website while we were staying at home. We increased our news time from 45 minutes to 1 hour. We developed an in-house app, which we've successfully launched last year. We have started using social media for work that we do with our clients in terms of getting the messages across. We even branched out into managing social media pages of our clients, for which we charge them a little fee. We've increased events that we do around the country. We've also got into the digital billboard space, and we're working with the company, and we basically marketing it for them, and we get a share out of that. And we also have ventured into cinema advertising, which we have a contract. That's, in a nutshell, there's some of the things that we have done, because we want to create ad space, we want to create revenue, because without making drastic changes overnight, we will not be able to survive.
Thank you, Riaz. I think well said. And I like what you said about, using the crisis to actually sort of, create better things, leveraging and taking the opportunity in a very tough, challenging situation, and being more innovative in the process. So I think the last 2 years has been a major challenge for most of us, or almost all of us. But despite that, we humans are like the cockroaches, we somehow survive, and we find ways and means to look at areas to improve our organizations. Okay, I'm going to say hello to Shashi Shekhar Vempati, CEO of the largest broadcaster in the region, Prasar Bharati. Shashi, welcome. Shashi Shekhar.
Thank you.
Yes, Shashi. So India has been, the Cannes Film Festival. I think India was making a big mark. I heard the minister saying that there's so much happening with India content. And even if you look at the current OTT platforms, India is coming up with super good mini-series that are being consumed all over the region. So I would say that, there's so much in your monetization, looking at diversifying income streams that Prasar Bharati as a broadcaster has looked into. But perhaps you could start off by telling us how you are reimagining the media of the future for the nation.
Sure. Thank you, and good morning to all. Very happy to be here today, and my compliments to Director AIBD and everyone for such a wonderful online event. It would have been great to do this in person, but I think technology has helped all of us overcome the challenges of the pandemic and keep the show going. You rightly pointed out, I think the Honorable Minister highlighted it, underscored it yesterday as well. India is a very happening, very unique market. And I think the first trend that I'm seeing both within our organization and across the industry here with my colleagues and peers is that broadcasting is now digital first, and it has happened across the board in India. And a key factor which is contributing to this is the tremendously low data costs and massive video consumption. It's a phenomenon that has just taken everyone by storm, and it just peaked during the lockdown and the pandemic. Be it children consuming educational content at home, be it adults consuming, entertainment, live sports, news, and so on. It just across the board, everybody's glued to their smartphones, their iPads, or their smart TVs. What we are also seeing is that a lot of content is premiering on OTT first, and that's a new phenomenon. OTT platforms are actively bidding for live sports. So there's this huge shift. And broadcast content now is available by default on OTT, on digital, no matter which format or where. And live news on YouTube has become very, very commonplace. In fact, one of the biggest live events that we do at Prasar Bharati on Doordarshan is the Republic Day Parade on 26th January every year. And it's a massive affair, 50 plus cameras. It goes on for several hours. And this year, for the first time, our digital viewership overtook linear viewership. So it was a tipping point, sort of inflection point, I would say. So clearly, innovating for digital first is an imperative for all broadcasters. And we at Prasar Bharati are seeing a lot of growth on this front. Very happy to share that our cumulative digital subscriber base is now more than 20 million. We are reaching about 190 plus countries. We have more than 200 live streams, TV, radio put together, available on a very unique app. You can listen to it, you can watch it anywhere in the world. I was just looking at our stats. We are doing about 1 billion plus annual views digitally, more than 5 billion watch minutes. On an average every day across our radio stations and TV channels, we are putting out digital content to the tune of about 800 to 1,000 uploads, cumulatively maybe 250,000 a year. So all of this is posing all kinds of challenges, and I think that is where we need to reimagine, reinvent ourselves, cloud-based media operations is completely new skill set for us in broadcasting. How to manage content delivery networks, again, it's completely new stuff. Cyber security is a new challenge. So all of these are new skills, new areas that we need to build on. And we need to look at the future opportunities. You were mentioning 5G. So there's immense scope for convergence between traditional broadcasting and the emerging technologies like 5G. And I think that is where I see the future going. And that is the area of opportunity for us.
Yes, and I think you've spoken a lot about 5G in broadcasting and content, and that's something that you're working on as well. Shashi?
Yes. So one of the areas that we're actively looking at is how do we bring broadcast content to smartphones directly? Can we have an embedded chipset that can receive content over the air in the broadcast mode to apps? And that way you get around this whole huge cost that is associated with many broadcasts that are happening on your traditional content delivery networks over the internet. And that is contributing to costs from a delivery standpoint, contributing to costs from a consumer standpoint as well, because they have to pay for airtime on a cellular network, data costs. So all of that can potentially go away, and you can infinitely scale. Let's say you take a cricket match, which millions watch today, IPL finals, for example, this week. Now that is something on traditional internet is a huge load of video streaming that is going to every phone, every device, every tablet or smart TV. If you could potentially shift or offload all of that traffic over to the broadcast network, directly deliver it to these apps using the broadcast infrastructure, that's a huge saving right there. So we are looking at direct-to-mobile broadcasting. We are working with IIT Kanpur, a premier technology institution. The Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, has given a clarion call for what he calls Atmanirbhar Bharat, or self-reliant India, where we develop a lot of these technologies indigenously. So this is an area of active innovation and R&D for us, working with IIT Kanpur, working with startups in India on how do we develop this technology to deliver broadcast content to smart devices, and then bring this within the family of 5G standards. So this can be, available ubiquitously in other markets. I know South Korea is working on this. The United States, several broadcasters are working on this. So we're looking to further collaborate with the entire broadcast community on this front.
Definitely leading the way in the digital arena. And, you brought out a very interesting point, the tremendous reduction in data costs is surely going to be, a great factor, a push factor in seeing digitalization of media. And I think it's just going to be a tremendous, big thing that's going to happen even as we talk. So really interesting there with Shashi Shekhar Vempati, CEO of Prasar Bharati India. And next I'm moving on to talk to Ms. Shaheen Islam from the National Institute of Mass Communication. And Shaheen is the Director General, and Bangladesh has been doing tremendous amount of content as well. And Shaheen is the person who is behind the educating arm of the media personnel in Bangladesh. Welcome to the CEO Roundtable, Shaheen. So how do you view on, the innovative challenges, the changes that are happening in the field of media, and what is NIMC doing towards supporting the media organizations in Bangladesh?
Thank you, Philo. In the era of the fourth industrial revolution and in the present scenario of unprecedented digital transformation, of skyrocketing demand and supply of media content and severe competition in the media industry, NIMC has seized the opportunity to reform training programs to keep our media personnel updated. Our aim is to increase the supply of resource persons, of trainees, of media workers, as well as encouraging the use of technology, advanced equipments, and use of software in the media industry. Let me use my slides to show you what we are doing. We are building a foundation that will allow our clients to stay agile, exploring the current industry trends, practices, challenges, and behaviors in relation to streaming media, exploring how to respond, rethink, recover in the changing industry, and exploring how to reimage what will work in the future. We are adapting to the new demands, introducing new subjects for training to upskill and update media workers in new technologies, and examining what channels, content creators, and streaming services need to do to hold on to their audiences and maintain and build on the surge of popularity. To achieve this, we have been organizing seminars, discussion programs with various forums, working with digital technologies. We have visited several artifacts and continuing to do so. We are identifying the disruptors and enablers for the business of media and entertainment. We are pinpointing where change is going on and what are the operations that support it. We introduce new courses on new media, trends of social media, cybersecurity, security, and visual radio technology. We also plan to introduce courses on we have already made plans to introduce courses on artificial intelligence, blockchain, Internet of Things, and other technologies. We are focusing on cybersecurity to monitor malicious content and content detrimental to the society and the nation. Our focus also includes updating our trainees on new media, social media related laws, regulations, acts, and create awareness to enable opportunity for emergency steps for control through or in coordination with appropriate legal controlling authorities such as the Terrestrial Service Regulatory Authorities, BRTC, or Rapid Action Battalion of the Police Force. Or we are organizing training facilities, workshops and seminars for keeping the human resources updated and enable skill development and adaptation. We are uploading programs, advertised activities and accomplishments in the social media and new media. We are also updating web portal of the organization. We are also conducting research and development activities.
Okay.
So that's all.
Thank you, Shaheen. Well said. And I think capacity building is one of the key factors, even as we move into this digital age, and telling and training media personnel is a key factor, so that they're able to be good players and be able to face what are the challenges of the media that we are seeing, right? So to me, being a media person for a long time, I'm very, very passionate. I started off in radio, and I think it's such a wonderful medium. And during the pandemic, we saw that radio was one of the only remote broadcasting that was still available. It's cheap, and it was still broadcasting despite whatever was happening, even in a lockdown situation. And without much ado, I'd like to introduce my next speaker, Mr. Rizal Aputedera from the Philippine Broadcasting Service. And he's a radio man as well. Aputedera has been dedicated. Can we switch off the microphone? Yep. Radio broadcasting industry, if you listen to his voice, we say he has the golden voice of radio. Well, that was when we started off. When I first opened my mouth and someone said, Philo, you have a golden voice. But today, that golden voice is very much replaced by multiple voices, which are, I won't call it golden, but it has changed, it has evolved. And today, it's all about personalities. So Rizal Aputedera is at the helm of the Philippine Broadcasting Service, an agency attached to the Presidential Communications Operations Office, PCOO. And he also served as City Tourism Officer of Gijawa City under Mayor Rodrigo Duterte. So without much ado, I'd like to call upon Mr. Rizal Aputedera. And Rizal, how did you, or what are you envisaging in reimagining the future of media? And perhaps you can focus on radio and your organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Philo, and to my fellow panelists in the CEO Roundtable. I'd like to say good afternoon from the Philippines. And before I do answer that, I'd like to just say that I'm very happy to see all of you and AIBD personalities here again. The last time we saw each other in person was in CM Reap, and I'm looking forward maybe in the future that we can all see each other again in person. Nonetheless, yes, when Philo and AIBD invited me to speak or to be part of the panel, I would never say no to Philo and to AIBD, and to share whatever it is that we practiced here, especially that all of us, all of our broadcast firms have been hit hard by the pandemic, and we had to resort to many ways to stay relevant. And on the part of the Philippine Broadcasting Service, what we started off was to address the limitations mostly on the reach, and noticing that a lot of people were online. We had to improve our online presence, which would actually cross broadcast our terrestrial stream. And that being said, since we only made use of available channels like Facebook, YouTube, and the like, which I think most of us also do because it's readily available, and it's a very stable platform. We have managed to increase our reach and engagement with the target audience. That being said, we had also to adapt and modify our approach, because now, since we were all used to having only radio sets being turned on, that you cannot see whoever's talking, but you can only listen to them. We also had to make aesthetic adjustments to ourselves when we were to be broadcasted not just through audio but also through video. And we also had to boost our new media team just so as it could complement our online broadcast. So we see that in the part of Philippines, and based on the habits of our listeners, it is very important that we also pay attention to the indicators set by these new and readily available platforms, because it can work to our advantage. And if we do understand the attitude and the habits of our listeners, we can readily modify our broadcast so that they can still get us and appreciate our news or our other programs that can be broadcasted, not just limited to terrestrial but also to digital as well. And so far, having this, it's really more of an advantage to us, because when people ask you, is radio still relevant? And this is an annual question, and we still say, yes, radio is still very much relevant. Thank you, Philo.
Thank you, and well said. The radio man himself. Radio started off in the 1800s, late 1800s, as a propaganda tool. And today, during the pandemic, people say that 90% of listeners tune into radio in the cars. But what happened during the lockdown, because we were not traveling, but people were still tuning into radio. And perhaps one of the challenges that radio has is content, right? And even as I speak, we always focus on content for television. What about radio? And today we are also looking at globalization of content. Gone are the days of, news perhaps is about the only thing that focuses on proximity, because I'd be more interested in what's happening in Malaysia rather than a cat jumping off a roof in America. So that element of proximity is still vital, right? Okay, so I would say that really it's time for us to look at how the role of media and how we as broadcasters can shift accordingly with the digital age. So, but before I move on there, I have Mr. Raja Singham seated right here next to me. Raja, thank you so much for coming. And, this is a gentleman who is, even as he walks, he keeps thinking. He is known as the great thinker. And Raja was appointed to the ASEAN Business Advisory Council ABAC, as the council member and the lead mentor of the ASEAN Mentorship for Entrepreneurs Network. And he founded Backflix. All right, watch out what that is about. Backflix is a free online learning portal supplying free online education to millions of children across the region. And I'm proud to have him right here. And Raja, you are grooming or coming up or looking at the future of how media is moving forward, and you're creating a big change in the way education is working in media, especially. Welcome. Yes.
Thanks so much, Philo and AIDB. It's great to be here. Philo always makes me look like about 100 times greater than I actually am. So, so thanks for that. Maybe key thing, it's nice being here, and I'm actually looking at how, the future of broadcasting and what comes next. Now, first caveat is I'm not in broadcasting. We run a broadcasting school where we do film broadcasting, IACT College. But I'm actually looking at it, and I think sometimes it's good to look at it more from a technology standpoint. I'm very much on the areas of leveraging technology to move ahead. So I think the first key question here is one of relevance. How is broadcasting as an industry going to stay relevant moving ahead? Darwin is quoted, said, it's not the strongest nor the most intelligent of species that will survive, but the one most adaptable to change. But while it's nice to say that, the question is what is the kind of change that is required? Because that's where the problem is. People sort of identifying what is the change that's required? What is coming next? And for this, I think broadcasting has to build competencies like scenario planning to look at what could come next, innovation. Okay, these are some of the areas, as well as have that willingness to experiment. So when you have staff within your group, within your own broadcasting or looking outside, and they come up with you with an idea which looks like it might or might not work, you may want to give it a shot, because it may be where your next big money is going to come from, or that next big change in your organization. Now, another thing is this: TV viewership is declining. Statistics very clearly show that TV viewership is declining. People had a little bit of a bumper the last 2 years. When you're stuck at home in a pandemic, then you can't go out, viewership goes up. But now that everybody is back out and about, I expect viewership to decline, and statistics do show that. Another thing is, a lot of broadcasters are government-funded broadcasters, and a lot of them here in AIDB are. And here you've got to look, you get a fixed sum from the government or fixed sum in order to be sorry to use this word, but a mouthpiece for what the government wants to communicate to its public, its citizens, on what they're doing. But bear in mind, it's even more important for you to be relevant, because as there's more and more media coming out, different broadcasters, YouTube, other areas that attract where the Gen Zs are, you've got to find ways to stay relevant, because the government is not going to be paying the broadcasters if they're not getting the kind of viewership expected of them. So this is another key aspect to look at. So I've actually identified a few key points which I think broadcasters should be looking at, in order to moving forward. Mr. Sashi has actually mentioned this. The first thing is to take a digital first. I like to call it actually a mobile first strategy, because most people are now spending most times. Gen Zs are purely on mobile. They were born in a mobile age. I myself clock 9 hours a day on my handphone, and I'm not a Gen Z person. So formatting for a mobile audience is going to be crucial. How do you change the news to a mobile format, multi-format? You can't take what's on TV and dump it on a handphone and expect it to get the results and get that captivation. So the first thing is move mobile first and have that format. The second one is this: there is an information overload. Even if you switch on your cable now, you've got, I don't want to name, I'm not here to advertise different broadcasting agencies, about 15 to 20 different news channels that we can see from different countries, from the US, the UK, from Japan, from Australia, local news channels, regional news channels. You have 20 channels. And if you're on others, you have even more. So there's a huge information overload. So how are you going to cope with that? Probably using AI in the future, so that actually AI can be used to curate based on what you're watching. You sometimes today you have stations recommending things for you. So that's an area. A third thing I see is collaboration, where, now agencies, you'll have all your people out there shooting. You think more of them should collaborate locally, regionally, internationally. So instead of one network having 100 people out there, third area is that. Specializing is another thing, looking at content, creation of content, looking at platform, and then how to get your content out there. I'm not going to look at social media. We've talked a lot about that. Immersive. 5G is going to be huge, and that's going to make, it's basically instant connections for mobile phones. That's an area. Leveraging technology, immersive. This is not now. Once 5G is in, and once I'm not blaming any brand, so sorry if we know all the brands, we know the headgear, whatever it is. You can be. So if there's a war going on in a place, or if there's famine in a place, or even something beautiful they're showing you, you can actually have broadcasting with 3D where you actually are in an immersive space. So this is something that is coming. I see global giants in broadcasting. Now we have countries, different broadcasters. Look at it, like you've got for social media, you've got Facebook. For Amazon, you've got, giants. You've got giants in areas like, cars. You've got in technology. I actually see that ultimately there are going to be some huge giants in broadcasting. Of course, a big problem is resistance from local governments for their broadcasting companies to be taken over by a giant. There's tons of stuff, but I just threw some of those things out there very quickly. But I think these are some of the areas you need to look at.
Thank you, Raja. I think we are looking at a giant takeover of most education organizations, and he's now talking about a giant takeover of media organizations. Very well said, but this is a very futuristic approach. I'd like to welcome everyone who's here. Actually, we are in our hotel at the Secretariat where the Asia Media Summit. We are having a hybrid event. This is a hybrid event, and I'd like to welcome all the dignitaries who have just joined us. Thank you. You're with us on the CEO Roundtable, and I'm talking to 5 CEOs from across the Asia Pacific region, and we're discussing about future forward reimagining media. And Raja, you talked about the relevance of media. Now that's the question. Nabil, can I have all the CEOs on frame? And this is a big question. How relevant do you think you are? Now we have most of you here who are public broadcasters. Shashi, the biggest broadcaster in the region. Aputera with PBS, Philippines. Philippines is known for its strength and all that. And of course, Bangladesh. And we're looking at the CEO of FPC, the voice of the Pacific. Now, Fiji is known as a big brother in the Pacific. That's how, I don't know whether Riaz is the big brother looking figure, but definitely they are innovating and doing stuff in the Pacific. Very, very strong there. So I want to ask you all, what do you think about yourselves? Do you think your media, Shashi Shekhar Vempati, is still relevant in India? Or do you see with the fragmentation of media that's taking place all over, is that a huge challenge, of course, but how do you view Prasar Bharati? Shashi?
Absolutely. I think it's a great question. Yes, the traditional media continues to be relevant. There was recently a study conducted by the Reuters Institute of Oxford University, where they looked at the most trusted media sources in India. And stunningly, AAR News and DD News were rated the highest in terms of trust. So clearly the public broadcaster is the place to go to when you want authentic news and information. And that relevance is not going away. What needs to happen, however, is exactly the subject of your roundtable today. It has to be reimagined and made future ready. And I think that is what all of us are busy with, bringing in new skill sets, training the content creators to think digital or mobile first, like Raja put it, being able to acquire new skills so that you're able to do this at scale on cloud-based platforms, moving away from traditional ways in which media infrastructure was operated by the broadcasters.
Fantastic. And all that is technology. Now, how about your content? What kind of content are you coming up with to remain relevant? I mean, news is the one thing that everybody watches, news and sports. I would say that every broadcaster would say, okay, everyone's watching my news. Everyone's, wanting to know what the public broadcaster is saying. But what about your content? With all this digitalization, what's the role of content in your organization?
Clearly, content has to innovate as well. and content has to innovate on formats, like was mentioned earlier by several speakers, that you need to format content, make it mobile ready, mobile digital ready. So that is one kind of content innovation. The other kind is convergence that is happening across TV and radio. So we are looking increasingly at content that can go both on TV and radio. For example, when we did cricket commentary, we had cameras in the radio commentary booth, and then we had a live stream on digital as well, where you could not only listen to the commentators, you could also watch them. So that creates a different experience altogether. Similarly, during the Olympics, we had sign language interpretation to go along with both the radio commentary and the TV visuals. So that is another kind of convergence from a content standpoint. What I'm increasingly seeing is that for the public broadcaster to differentiate itself, to continue to be relevant from a content standpoint, the content we create needs to have immense information value and knowledge value. It has to have a long shelf life. It can't just be the entertainment content, which has a very short shelf life, which comes and goes, and then after that nobody really cares about it. While in the case of the public broadcaster, there's very high recall value, be it our epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata, which did very well during the lockdown, or a lot of knowledge-oriented content that we're creating. And this is where we will have to continue to differentiate, create content which is of value, which brings families together, which imparts knowledge, which is high in its information quotient, and has a very long shelf life, so that digitally this content continues to be relevant, not just today, but 10, 20 years from now.
Fantastic. I like the way content is also being archived, because a lot of content is, now we have catch up radio or podcast, as you call it. And this is so important because it's not just a one-time affair. And we can actually see that a lot of broadcasting houses, earlier we talked about, diversifying your income streams. And this is where organizations are actually moving forward, selling content and making their content available, podcasts especially. I'd like to move to the Pacific with Riaz. How do you see the challenge ahead in reimagining media and continuing to be relevant, Fiji Broadcasting Corporation in the Pacific?
Well, the only way to remain relevant is to ensure that we change with the growing times and demands. Mm-hmm. We have to keep up with technology, as you mentioned. I mean, that's a no-brainer. We all have to keep up with technology, otherwise we'll get left behind. Unfortunately, the smaller broadcasters will always be playing a catch-up game. The bigger broadcasters will be doing it first, and then the smaller broadcasters will be doing it a bit later. But I think the main issue, apart from that, is to remain relevant. We have to remain relevant. Earlier on, I had said, we had to cut back on a lot of things during the pandemic, and we still are in that position in terms of acquisition of content, because we as a country, because we're so small, we're less than 1 million people, we don't have specialized schools where people would go and learn how to produce television and proper editing, and most of our people learn on the job. We watch a lot of YouTube videos. We try and produce as much as we can. And since we cut back on buying content because we couldn't afford to during the pandemic, because our revenue had fallen by about 90% overnight at the peak of it, we've had to go out and produce our own content. Now, we don't have the experience to produce the sort of content that other countries like India would produce, because of the experience, and we don't have that. But the fact of the matter is, it's pushed us into a corner where we have to, you either swim or you sink. We have to go out and produce content, and whatever we can. But we've always kept one thing in mind, and there's a couple of things that as a public service broadcaster, we always give very high importance to. One is that we've got to produce content that relates to the public and that is relevant to the public, and where we can interact with the public as much as possible in terms of getting their feedback or getting them to participate in the content that we produce. There are many examples of it. And also the other thing that we keep in mind, and I'm sure a lot of public service broadcasters do around the world, we are very heavy into nation building. You would have seen yesterday, those of you who were there for the whole session. As the session ended yesterday, we had produced a song called "Children of Fiji." And hopefully, if we have time, we can play it again when we end today. Those sorts of things that we do. That is just one of the many examples that we do in terms of nation building and trying to make the country stronger. And by doing that, we are in a unique position because the commercial stations will not do that sort of thing. We do a lot of, we produce a lot of material, not very sophisticated, very simple stuff that actually we've done it for such a long time, and we're only 10 years old in terms of our TV arm. But Fijians, common Fijians, recognize us as the company that engages in content and content creation that leads to nation building. No other commercial station does that. So it's that connection. It's that connection, and the more you do it, the more you connect with people. And if you have to do it with changing technology, and if you don't do it, then you're not relevant anymore. So, I mean, that's something that we want to do. Sometimes, as you know, content creation is more expensive than buying content, but that is the world that we live in. And that is the reason why we are partners in AIBD. We're always looking for content that we can possibly acquire FOC, or we can buy it at a cheaper rate from our partners. And we actually already do out of Korea and out of China and a lot of other member countries, where we buy some content that we know is not going to be available on platforms like Netflix, etc. Why buy content that's on Netflix if people are already watching Netflix? It doesn't make any sense. We won't be able to sell it. So we're looking for unique content that we can buy at very affordable rates, or biting the bullet and trying to produce more content ourselves, which is relevant to the people of Fiji.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I think well said. And one of the points that you made was, the public broadcaster still has a role to play in nation building. And I guess the model is different for every country, right? There are countries that are moving on to commercializing their radio stations, and at the root of it, the public broadcaster's role in nation building may not be as important today as it was many years ago. So these are some of the key factors that we have to study and look at different models for different countries, right? And how it works for Fiji perhaps may not work for Malaysia or for Philippines. So Rizal, what are your takeaways on getting your media to be relevant and to keep up with the times in reimagining the future of broadcasting? Rizal.
Yes, yes. What the first challenge that we encountered when I entered public broadcast, since I came from a private broadcast firm, was that true to what one of the panelists mentioned earlier, that one of the challenge for a public broadcast or government-owned station would be it could be stereotyped as a mouthpiece for the government. But what I do like about starting with this administration in our country is that we were given free hand on the editorials that we have as government radio. One of the strongest points now for all government media outlets here in the country is we can practice editorial independence, and understanding that already gives you a lot of leeway to come up with more content. It doesn't have to be necessarily critical of what the government is doing, but we do find constructive approaches so that the public will see that, yes, even in government radio, there are checks and balances. And this makes it more interesting because having to have an entity like that, practicing editorial independence, allows your listeners now to engage more. It means that, okay, this is not a wall that we just hit, but we can actually ask, we can actually interact, we can actually demand from our government what it should be doing through the help of radio. Case in point, also when the pandemic started, all the assets of our government, TV, radio, even print, be it digital or traditional, we had to integrate our resources. And what by doing so, we actually had the public engage in us more and say, yes, all government media can be trusted, and it did, because when one survey came out for brand trust, surprisingly, almost all the government media outlets and assets ranked high in the trust of the viewing and listening and reading public. And so, I do believe that the pandemic also caused challenges for private firms here in our country. I've seen a couple already about to close shop, but yet government media still stands there. We're still on the air. We still have, as a matter of fact, we even boosted our power and our reach in all our stations across the archipelago, and we are happy that the public trusts government now through the programs that we do. And one way to check and balance this, before I wrap this one up, is we also have to rely on the surveys, and having to see the surveys on what really the people want to hear more of from your programs. Content is, I do agree. Also earlier it was mentioned that content is important and content is key. And for us to understand how to better our content, we always go back to the surveys, and that will be the anchor of what we will set out to do again to improve our programs.
Thank you, Rizal. I think very interesting, and I like the way you said about trust. And I think we've come a long way. Media has come a long way from being a government mouthpiece. And if broadcasters today have to understand that in order to survive, you need to be innovative and building trust, because today's audiences are not just listening to your radio or television or watching TV to get the news. You have such a thing as social media or other platforms that are giving you the news and so forth. And very often, these kind of portals or mediums are actually focusing on giving you truth as well that public broadcasters don't give. So there's a huge challenge there. We can't go about saying, hey, I'm giving the truth on radio or I'm giving the truth on my government station, because today your content is questionable, especially the news. So I think we have all evolved to an era of, changing. Politicians are changing. They understand the strength of media. They also know that they are accountable to everything they say. And media is again taking the meaning of say what you mean and mean what you say. And I think this is a crucial factor that all of us are looking at. And as we talk about reimagining media, a lot of you focused on technology, immersive technologies. Bala, you were saying, Raja, sorry, you were talking about immersive technologies. And how long is that going to happen? We need the televisions that can actually be equipped with such kind of technology to allow it to be immersive. What's your point on that, Bala? Raja, sorry.
Hi. Yeah, thanks, Philo. The key thing about immersive technology is still some time away until you get 5G up and running. We're still, we are at the very, very early stages. The metaverse, all of these things are there. But what I'm trying to say is these things are there. Maybe we don't have the bandwidth currently. Maybe some of the technology needs to be worked on. But you need to start thinking about these things now. So if you plan your next 4, 5 years, 6 years, you're ready when the time comes. That's one. Technologies like, things like big data, AI, cloud computing, cybersecurity beside, these are all the things broadcasters will have to make sure their people develop the competencies. And if you don't have it in-house, you outsource and get people outside. But your CEOs, your senior management, they all have to understand how these things work, so that they can actually jump on board and then leverage these technologies. Another thing, just want to throw something out there, because I always believe content is king, whichever way you look at it. But I think one of the things broadcasters can also look at is a lot of y'all have wealth of content, 10 years, 20 years, 30, 40. And maybe this is as I'm getting older and more nostalgic. I think one of the things would be nice is if you took a lot of your old content, rehashed it, used new methods, made it interesting, and brought it out. So, for example, I was born in 1967. I would really like to know what was the news in 1967. Now, of course, not the whole year's news condensed. Because nowadays you see these YouTube videos of kids not even knowing how a phone of the old days where you'd sort of turn the dial round, and there is hilarious videos as you try to figure out how that works. But it'd be quite nice for the younger generation because the gap is getting greater and greater. You got your millennials, now you got your Gen Zs. And if they could actually, in some sort of interesting way, relate back to the past, a lot of things that happened in the past are quite interesting. And this is content you have. If you repackage to make it interesting, today most children and the Gen Z and the younger generation are more on international content rather than local. I mean, that's the true fact. They're all on YouTube. They're all on every Netflix. They're all on all these different type of channels. And you'd almost see they totally lose out on the local things that we grew up with. And I think broadcasters, you have this wealth already have.
Okay, thank you, Raja. And Shaheen, how do you see the relevance of media and reimagining of media in Bangladesh? Very quickly, yes. Microphone, please.
Thank you. In Bangladesh, there are lots of private channels now, and they're all very excited about it. In fact, also the government radio, that is Bangladesh Betar, they are using visual radio for their news contents. We are all together trying to upgrade our programs so that we can adapt to the new technologies. We are talking about using the artificial intelligence to check our facts, because to check on fake news. We are also thinking of using IoT, Internet of Things. For example, we can use it in a microphone and make it as per our order. So we, in a crowd, if we want to have a one-to-one interview, we can program the microphone in such a way. Yes, Bangladesh is coming up. All the young generation are also into social media. When we train our participants in the community radios, they are also trying to use the modern technologies. They're into YouTube. They're making their own contents. I think Bangladesh is into it.
Fantastic. And with the help of thank you, Shaheen. So here we go. We're talking to our members from the Asia Pacific, CEOs from 5 different organizations, talking about the relevance of media and the future forward, reimagining media. I simply can't reimagine how the future would look like, but it will be interesting to see as I talk to Shashi, a hologram or whatever immersive technology that allows him to be here. Now we are actually looking at the Zoom, right? And I see him standing in front of me. Hi, Philo. So that perhaps is the new kind of technology that we are heading towards. It is very exciting. Some years ago, when someone told me, you know what, you'll be able to talk to somebody on the phone and you'll be able to see them as you talk. And it's like, really? Because we were living in such a blind era. But today, this is a possibility. So having Sashi or Riaz, don't travel, guys. You're just going to be appearing in this room like that. It's going to be a near possibility in the future. Just really exciting, isn't it? Yes. So any comments? One last take before we close the session. I'd just like to hear from each of you. Shashi, how do you view this challenge that's being posed? Even as we talk about new technology, we're talking about 5G. I think people are already talking about 6G, 7G. It's so fast, okay? So the next year probably we'll be talking about something else in the session. So what is your comment on how you'd like to move Prasabharati forward or advice to other broadcasters? Thank you.
Yeah, clearly the technology cycle is moving very fast, and I think broadcasters traditionally are slow to catch up with technology. You're always playing catch up, and I think that is one challenge. Which means that your staff, your employees, their learnability needs to increase. They need to become far more nimble, adaptable to new technologies, learn new skills, and keep upgrading them every few years both in terms of engineering as well as on the content side as well. Because unless you know how to use these new tools, you will not be innovative in the content that you create. So that's one challenge. The second challenge I see more from a consumer standpoint, that attention spans are going down. Right, we are flooded with so much of content, so much of information, which is why I think radio will continue to have a future, because listening is one habit where you really concentrate, you pay attention, and listening is something you can do, multitasking. You could be driving, you could be doing something else. So I see a great future for podcasting and information value, content with great information value, a lot of knowledge, and I think interesting podcasts clearly have a future. So these are two things that, how do we hold the attention of the audience, and how do we continue to be up to date with the latest that is emerging in the technology space. I think it is at the intersection of these two is where the future for broadcasters to continue to be relevant lies.
Thank you. Thank you, Shashi. I think people always want to see something new. And as humans, in the midst of all this technology, you're dealing with the human being. And sometimes people always say about the advertisement mentality, whereby people are tuning into a program for 3 minutes and then you shut off and come back and shut off and come back. But at the end of the day, like you said, the kind of content, the quality of content, these are things that are going to add an element of interest, the human interest stories that will be able to captivate audiences no matter what. So I ask Riaz, you've done such a great job, Riaz, the kind of content that I'm seeing coming across during this conference. What's your take on the future?
Well, in order to be relevant, you're right. And I agree with Sashi also what he said about radio. I mean, there was a prediction made about 10 years ago, or maybe more, that radio was going to die. I never believed that. And I'm totally convinced now that radio has, it's not going to die. It's going to have a great future. But just to answer your question, Philo, in order to become relevant, you have to move and you have to change with the times. And the best way to do it, and from our point of view at least, where we don't have access to the sort of education platforms to keep on producing people in the industry, skilled people, I have great faith in our young employees, in the young staff. There was a time when I used to consider myself young. I'm not young anymore. So with the average age now in our office is around about 27, 26. And these are the guys who are actually, guys and girls who are actually keeping abreast of the changing technology, of the changing demands, of what's relevant and not relevant. About close to 70% of our population is considered to be youth in our country. So we need these sorts of employees who are young, who are innovative, who are enthusiastic about being in the industry and coming up with ideas. And that's why we've got to be very inclusive. We believe in a lot of meetings. We talk and we discuss things, and we allow ideas to flourish as much as possible under the circumstances of our resources that we have at hand. But we try and push that as much as possible, because that's where the answers lie. These people know what is relevant, what is being demanded for, and we have to, as CEOs, keep an open mind as to what we should do. There were certain things that I wouldn't have done before, but I can't even start to name the sort of stuff that we're doing now. For traditional broadcasters, it would be horrifying if I told you some of the stuff that we do on television. But it is what it is. And if we don't have young people with us, and in the majority in our workplaces, then we will miss out on being relevant, and our survival depends on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Riaz. I think this is very exciting. You're talking about radio. I would say that there was once people who said that radio would probably die when video came. And when something else came, they said video would die. Nothing is dead yet. Everything is still very much present from what we see. And that's because we are always reinventing ourselves. And this is what media houses should be doing, reinventing, changing, and going on with the new innovative technology, as well as looking at newer ways of producing content, podcasting, and so forth. So Rizal, one last take before we sign off from here, Shaheen and also Raja. Yes, Rizal, what do you have? a final.
Quickly, I would just like to say that again, radio is never dead because in my country, of more than 100 million people, radio is still the go-to medium, which is very accessible and free. At the same time, I do suggest, I do want to inspire others that fellow CEOs or fellow leaders in their respective fields that to complement the technology that you have, you can also use the technology to your advantage by understanding what your listener wants. By understanding what your listener wants and understanding what is very important to them, and also understanding what could make them engage more, using the technology that you have, sends also a better and stronger message across your platform, and would also guarantee an increase in audience share, thereby making your broadcast firm relevant and up to relevant and credible.
Thank you. Thank you. So there you go. Relevant, great, fantastic, being staying on for the next couple of years, decades. So this is all where we are going, and each of us needs a strategy. And you said understand the audience. Now, how do you understand an ever-changing audience? Today we're talking about content. Is content the king or is audience the king? Right? So this is a question that you have to look at. So everything revolves around your audience, the production of your content and so forth.
I would like
Yes.
I would like to make a final remark. I think reimaging media is a game changer. It can create vast opportunities. It can reduce the cost. It can, with using cybersecurity, you can ensure security of your contents, and with cloud computing, you can make a vast storage of your contents. And not only does it reduce cost, with innovative ideas, you can make unimaginable contents, and it's opening up job opportunities, a great opportunity for the young generation.
Thank you. Well said, Shaheen. Very interesting points there. Raja, before we round up, one take from you.
Yeah, I think, radio is, no one's saying radio is going away, but I think what we're trying to say is there are people like Spotify, iTunes, podcasts, there's the ability to listen to channels now on internet radio from anywhere in the world. So it has become more competitive, and that's why it becomes harder for all of us to try and get that audience, because there's so much more going on. On a separate note, Shreyas, I would love to come to Fiji, and I would love to see whether our school can actually help you with the education side of things, because it'd be great if our broadcasting students here and your broadcasters there could sort of, get together and see how we could actually exchange some knowledge and information. And on a little plug here, ICT College and AIBD are actually launching a series of diplomas in broadcasting, looking at areas like AI, social media, digital marketing, all the different areas as well. So I think that I will let AIBD notify member countries. But I'm very excited. As you said, you've got a lot of young people in your broadcasting company. We have a lot of young people here who are broadcasting students as well, and studying for degrees and diplomas and things. It'll be quite nice if we could see how we could help each other.
Fantastic.
So I'll reach out to you later.
Okay, that's a business level,
yeah.
Right? So we're coming back to the media level, all right? So we're looking at media houses, training homes, looking at how we can upskill and keep media competent and up to the mark, right? And with the change in technology, I think Shashi was talking a lot about it, but we can't deny it, right? So you're looking at content and technology running the race together. And are you able to keep up with this race so that you continue to be relevant and continue to broadcast and make the audience happy, right? At the end of it, you might have machines, you might have AI, you might have everything, but you're broadcasting to real people, and real people need real stories. So at the end of it, it's content, it's technology, and it's a strategic approach, I think, ladies and gentlemen, in media today. Right? And this is what media houses really have to look at. So I'd like to thank my esteemed panelists today. We have Riaz from PG, Shashi Shekhar Vempati from India, Rizal Giovanni Apotedera from Philippines, Shaheen Islam from Bangladesh, and of course, Mr. Rajasekharan here in Singham, sorry. A lot of names are popping up my head. That's what happens when you're running an event and doing this. So Rajasingham from BAC, right, who also talked about the latest technologies that will complement media. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to all my panelists. Let's hope that media continues to go strong, and with such giants such as yourself, definitely, and with AIBD at the back, we'll ensure that media keeps going and continue to be relevant. Thank you, everybody. It's back to our MC in Fiji. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam. What an amazing discussion from leaders and CEOs from around the region. Now that brings our sessions for today and for this summit to a close. Thank you to all of our panelists, contributors, moderators, and attendees who made this event a success. It is because of you that this event was possible. Now, to close the summit and to offer our thanks on behalf of the Fiji government as the virtual host for this year's summit, please welcome the Acting Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Communications, Tupombara Vilala.
Ms. Philomena Nanaka Prasam, the Director of the Asia Pacific Institute of Broadcast Development, Mr. Mayak Agrawal, the President of the General Conference of the AIBD, government representatives, delegates from the global media and technology industry and academia, ladies and gentlemen. Bula Vinaka, and it gives me great pleasure to deliver the closing address. The Honorable Minister for Communications would like to convey sincere apologies for not being able to attend and deliver his closing remarks for the 17th Asia Media Summit this afternoon, as he has been called away on urgent matters. As we conclude the first of its kind, 17th Virtual Asia Media Summit, I would like to thank you for your productive engagement during these 4 days of deliberations. On behalf of the Honorable Prime Minister and the Fijian government, I would like to extend my appreciation to all our participants for making this event a success. I guess we can all agree, never before have we been presented with so much information. The appetite and the rate at which our audiences consume information has increased exponentially. With the increase in the consumption of information, we have seen a proportional increase in misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, and fake news. Citizens must have access to accurate information to make informed choices and decisions and to improve the quality of their lives. One way in which we counted misinformation and fake news was to have the official social media accounts verified, to carry the blue tick. Now, verified pages are shown higher in search results, making it easier for the social media users to obtain factual and timely information regarding key initiatives and the news. As the Honorable Prime Minister highlighted in his keynote address, there are about 4.6 billion social media users. At no point in history has the media ever been able to exert as much influence over their audiences as online platforms now allow them to do, so near instantaneously. Therefore, as responsible media professionals, we have a critical role in informing our communities with accurate, fact-checked information presented in the correct context and to create content that is engaging. With the emergence of OTT and streaming platforms like Netflix and Amazon Prime, traditional broadcasters need to reposition themselves to stay relevant. Producing more local content and news together with the use of streaming technologies, we can broadcast directly and near real time onto social media platforms and websites. Moreover, for Fiji, the availability and affordability of digital technology has given us an unmatched opportunity to improve government services and engagement with government. It has also enabled us to overcome a mammoth physical challenge, that we're a country of about 110 populated islands, and that some of our people live in isolated and far-flung areas. They require access to services and timely information, just as the city dwellers. Connectivity has been a core tenet of the Fijian government's commitment to create a more equitable society and to bridge the gaps that exist. The Fijian government has invested significantly in the Walesi digital television platform, ensuring 100% coverage through terrestrial and satellite means. All free-to-air broadcasters now have a level playing field in terms of coverage. Broadcasters can now compete on content. The The Walesi platform is also available on a mobile phone app. Today, 95% of Fijians have access to the internet, and we're committed to connecting the remaining 5% of Fijians. Our government has also invested in school connectivity projects, delivering internet connectivity to students and communities in remote and maritime islands. Now, through this, we will ensure that students in remote parts of Fiji have the same benefits as urban students do. With these few words, I would like to wish all participants the very best, and thank you once again for making this event a success. We hope to see you in Fiji in person for the next AIBD event. Vinaka.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Acting Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Communications, Tupo Maravilala. Thank you very much, Madam, and thank you to the Ministry of Communications and by extension, the Fiji government. I'd now like to go to the AIBD GC Council President, Mr. Mayank Agrawal, to give his closing remarks. Mr. Agrawal, if you're ready, we'd love to hear from you, sir.
Yes, I'm connected. So, should I go for the concluding remarks?
Yes, you should.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So, today's deliberations are over, and now we are concluding the session. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the delegates joining from different countries, different time zones. Her Excellency Nineta Barbulescu, Ambassador of Romania, Her Excellency Aman Bola, High Commissioner of Pakistan, His Excellency Michaelis Rokas, Ambassador and Head of EU Delegation to Malaysia, Dr. Rashid Mustafa Sarwar, UNICEF Malaysia Representative, Mr. Victor and Miss Emily, representatives from French Embassy in Malaysia, Miss Dorothy Benjamin, representative from ILO, and AIBD Director, Miss Philomena Nana Pragasam. You have done wonderful job, Philomena, over the last 2 days. Wonderfully organized this summit, and my thanks to Republic of Fiji also for hosting this summit. Very well done. Esteemed speakers, delegates from the global media and technology industry and the academia. During these past 2 days of the Asia Media Summit 2022, we have had many fruitful and illuminating deliberations, gapping the lacuna in our knowledge and expanding awareness that can enhance our understanding of this mutable world. We have put the word mutable world. We all faced so much of trouble during the last 2 years because of coronavirus. And now the world over, the situation is better. The virus is subsiding, and really we are all looking forward that we meet physically. So through these sessions, I hope that you have gained insights into how to reach all our stakeholders. It has been truly a great couple of days. Thanks so much for all your kind wishes and positive encouragement. As the president of GCAIBD, I would humbly ask you to join me in thanking all those whose wisdom and experience had made our event successful. Let us clap. First and foremost, I would like to thank the Republic of Fiji for hosting the event with AIBD. The special attention by the Fijian government, and particularly that of Attorney General and Honorable Minister for Communications, Republic of Fiji, His Excellency Ayaz Saeed Khayu, was really remarkable. I would like to include Fijian national broadcaster, Fiji Broadcasting Corporation, and Mr. Riaz Sayed Kayub, the Chief Executive Officer of FBC, for partnering with AIBD. I really thank His Excellency, Honorable Prime Minister of Fiji. We are immensely thankful for all the esteemed speakers, particularly the honorable ministers from different countries who had joined. Again, I will name His Excellency Ayaz Saeed Kayum, Minister of Communications, Republic of Fiji. His Excellency Mr. Anurag Singh Thakur, Minister of Information and Broadcasting, Youth Affairs and Sports from my country, India. His Excellency Tulop Vansemo, Minister of Communications and Information Technology, Samoa. His Excellency Dr. Khieu Kanareth, Minister of Information, Cambodia. His Excellency Yune Thong Khaofan, Deputy Minister of Information, Culture and Tourism, Lao PDR. His Excellency Anucha Nakasai, Minister in the Prime Minister's Office, Thailand, for gracing us with their presence. I'm really thankful to all of them. Besides the ministerial session, we have had 6 sessions of the summit with about 40 speakers from 16 countries, along with 5 pre-summit events. That's also very important, the pre-summit events, which deliberated on so many topics. They delivered in a very interactive manner, and good interaction with the instructors and experts. It took place during the pre-summit events. On behalf of the AIBD, I would like to thank the Yuso Banka Foundation, WHO, ITU, and ILO for partnering with AIBD for these important pre-summit activities. I would also like to thank our members who had participated in cultural programs and the content sharing session, which had 6 organizations showcasing over 25 programs. I really enjoyed the dances all on the Fiji beaches, and really look forward that I visit those unique areas, unique locals, and the Indian broadcaster, Doordarshan. We covered this summit very well, particularly the cultural part also. Our 290 participants from 5 pre-summit workshops and webinars who have successfully completed the activity, we are very appreciative of your time and attention, and I hope that you have big takeaways from your session that will help you to improve and expand your connection with the audience. And finally, I would be remiss if I do not include our team of AIBD working diligently behind the scenes. I know they had sleepless nights. Organizing a conclave in virtual mode itself is not an easy task, I tell you, because connecting with so many speakers in so many countries and checking their connections, that's something very important. Other than the preparing agenda, then now still they have task ahead to put everything together and preparing the report. I thank Ms. Philomena. Philomena, wonderful working with you, and I really look forward meeting you in Kuala Lumpur. I wanted to come personally, but because of some other pressing reasons, I could not come. And really, you are doing very good job. So many training sessions you are organizing, and this virus has in no way impeded your speed, I would say. And your team for putting together this first ever virtual Asia Media Summit. I'm using first ever virtual Asia Media Summit. Now I am very much sure that the future summits are going to be in hybrid mode. So people who can come will come, who will be joining from elsewhere will join virtually. So there was tremendous content and relevant session that reflects the media's need of the moment. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, although this is the last day of the summit, the last moments of the summit, our work and duties as ascribed and highlighted during the summit are not over. As media professionals, we are constantly vigilant and cognizant of our duty to our society and their needs. So I would like to call upon all media organizations to continue their efforts, your participation and your support towards each other. Let us be part of this community that work for the betterment of the public, that guides the younger generations protecting their rights of access to information, assisting media organizations that need our attention, and finally, leaving no country behind. As the humanity on this globe, we have to all progress together. I thank you for joining us for the Asia Media Summit 2022, and I hope to see you all in the next year's summit. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And thank you for the work that you and the AIBD team continue to do to innovate and inspire media growth in the Asia Pacific region. And finally, I'd like to warmly welcome someone that I've had the pleasure of working with over the past couple of weeks, the director of the AIBD, to say a few words before we close the 17th Virtual Asia Media Summit for 2022.
Thank you, Amelia, and thank you for the multiple rehearsals that we had over this past few weeks. And I'd like to thank everybody, especially the esteemed dignitaries who have joined us from day one of our summit, and to the governments who have been very supportive to AIBD, guiding us, the government of India, Cambodia, Thailand, and in Europe we have France as one of our esteemed members who has a long history with us, and of course host country Malaysia, and Fiji in the Pacific, which is one of the strongest members, and of course all the other countries in the Indo-Pacific region. We also have Africa. The people are joining us from Nigeria, and we're very happy that all over the world, despite the differences in the time zone, this last 2 days has seen a gathering of media professionals here at the Asia Media Summit. And truly, we are honored to have this. And it took us months to put this together. And just for your information, everything is being handled virtually from Fiji as the virtual host. So Fiji is a big kudos to the Fiji team in FBC. Thank you so much. They deserve a big hand, everybody. So it's a very unique summit. A virtual host who's handling everything from Fiji, the playouts, the videos, the whatever that they're doing, it's happening. It's a lot of communication going to and fro from the Pacific to Malaysia, but somehow we have put this thing together. And I'd like to thank all the people who have come together in this vibrant conference to share their knowledge and in taking the future of media forward. Now, this is something that today's 2 days deliberations from ministers and CEOs to program makers, these are the people who have been sitting and sharing with us and telling us how we can take the future forward, reimagining media. And I think this is the first time a conference is having a virtual host. Someone said, how did this idea came about? And the moment I and my team thought about it, we immediately called Mr. Riaz Qayyum, who is the CEO of the Fijian Broadcasting Corporation. And we said, Riaz, can you be a virtual host? And he immediately said yes. So Riaz Qayyum, CEO of Fiji Broadcasting Corporation, thank you for your far-sighted, visionary, and brave, bold yes, because from that day, we've been working so hard to make this a reality. Thank you, Riaz. And also like to thank everybody who joined us. And we're going to have a very special networking session. And I also like to say that we're holding this, and as we sit in this AMS today, at the end of it, this happened this month, seems to be the month for freedom of press, right? We celebrate the freedom of press. And media is always the fourth pillar of democracy. And this is something that all lawmakers, all broadcasters should understand, that media should broadcast the truth. and it stands for the truth and for democracy. And we support this as AIBD. Being a neutral body, we support this, we support everybody, but media plays a huge role and it should be given the freedom it deserves. And with that, I'd like to say thank you. And most of all, I'd like to thank my team from AIBD. Can you just put up your hands from the back if the camera is catching you? Very small team, but they've been working day and night. We don't sleep, okay? Everyone's got tons of powder on their face because they've not been sleeping or we've not had lunch. So if you hear any sound from the microphone, we've not eaten from morning. So I don't eat because I'm a broadcaster. You're not supposed to eat before you talk, but they haven't eaten. So we're all waiting for this closing tea. And I'd like to say a warm welcome to all the ambassadors and dignitaries who have come today to join our closing ceremony from all over the region. So members of AIBD and members of the Diplomatic Corps. Thank you so much, everybody. And thank you to as well. Thank you. And it's goodbye here from Malaysia, AIBD Malaysia. And can we have a photograph, please, so that all of us remember this first ever virtual conference with a virtual host. Thank you. Do we have a photo? How is that going to happen? Yeah. So I think your cameras, Nabil? Can you have everybody switch on your cameras? Those of you who are in Zoom, and here I think we have the cameras on already. So can we have a photograph? Yes? Any commands, Nabil and team?
So if I may.
All right, so I would like the Fiji team to appear on camera. Please switch on your camera, guys. You're doing such a great job with all the rehearsals, with all the connectivity and everything that we've been doing across the Pacific. Please switch on your cameras so that we can see you and we can start talking or taking pictures, start clicking. Can we have, Riaz, can we have the Fiji team switch on the cameras? And also all our panelists as well.
Okay, yeah, I saw some of them just to switch it on just a while ago. There we go, there we go.
Akash and team who have been putting up with all our cross-country talk. Thank you, and Amelia. So can we have everybody on board and let's click. Can we start this as quickly as possible? Thank you. Thank you. Right, can we just have a click? AIBD team at the back, please. Yeah, stay on. Come. All right, let's make this fast. Okay. Ambassadors and dignitaries, thank you so much. And just bear with us as we click the photographs for historical purposes. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bula is hello in Fiji, yeah? And then
Bula, everyone.
Okay.
Like this.
Okay.
One.
All right. Bula. Bula Binaka. It's not Hasbullah, but Bula. Bula Vinaka. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Naga.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all the team. We'll see you in Fiji soon. Mr. Raja Singham will be coming with me. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate your presence, your time taken to be with us over the last 2 days. I'd also like to thank our kind sponsors, without whom none of this would have been possible. Our host, the Republic of Fiji government, our AIBD members, and everyone who contribute to make this event a success. Thank you so very, very much. Until next time, I'm Amalia Rigsby saying Nisa Mwade from the Fiji Islands.